See, I wouldn't exclusively call this as a women's issue, but there are many men who suffer from being self-critical or feeling low about oneself. But people who've been suppressed for a long time, no matter how they've been suppressed, go through this a lot more. So, in that sense, yes, more women actually have suffered for a long time, generationally for a long time, than men have. So, that is something I do agree with. So, it has impacted them socially, even though we've moved forward and become a bit more modern thinking and there's equality and things like that. There are certain biases in society that is still to be tackled, and that's why these things continue. Okay, so in that sense, yes, I do agree that women have been a bit more impacted than men, but this is not something that is just connected only to women or anything like that. Okay, so how do we tackle this now? So the first thing is to recognize that whatever we are saying to ourselves, whether we're saying like, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, or any of these kind of examples of a negative self-talk, the first step is to become conscious that I'm actually saying things like this. That's the first step, because we are not consciously saying these things to ourselves. All this talk is unconscious, is automatic, because a long time ago, we came to believe this is probably how I am. And sometimes they have their roots all the way back in your childhood when maybe somebody made a comment, or you decided, looking at somebody and compared yourself to somebody and decided, maybe I'm not good enough. So many times when we handle people with self-criticism and things like that, it has its roots at a time when you didn't know much about life, much about yourself or people or your abilities. A child just compared himself or herself with somebody and then just decided, this is how I am, this is how life is. So these decisions are sometimes called as fundamental childhood illogical decisions, because so they become the foundation for how we think, and they're totally illogical in nature. And just because it went into us so deeply, as if this is the reality, it keeps repeating itself again and again. Every time there's a situation, it's almost like our brain wants to prove this is how it is. It's like some people are constantly trying to prove that everybody is unfair towards me. People are about to prove that, I'm the only one who's terrible at doing things. So, so these are things we start as a child, and then we go about making it a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, if I want to find a particular reason not to feel good about myself, I'll keep finding something constantly. It's like, if I want to find some cracks in the wall somewhere, I'll keep finding something all the time. So if that becomes our focus in life, we keep finding it. Now, how do you break these kind of thought patterns? Is very simple. Is to recognize consciously and practically, it is not true, but your brain is repeating it out of habit. So in other words, this kind of thinking is a habit that is happening in the mind. You are not doing it, because the moment you believe, I am thinking this way, you feel even more terrible about yourself for thinking this way. But if you are thinking this way, then stop thinking that way. But you're not able to stop it, isn't it? And that's because you're not doing it. It is just a habitual voice going on in your mind. So that's the first step, to dissociate yourself from that thought, recognizing, maybe as a child I believed it, but today I know it is not true. But my brain is just repeating the same thing out of habit. The second step is to question it. Sometimes small thinking patterns where you're thinking low about yourself just goes away by questioning it. When you ask, is it true? that, you're not good enough. Or you can ask yourself a question like, what is that good enough? Who decided what is good enough? So sometimes just by questioning it, you can sometimes weaken some of these thought processes. Okay. Sometimes you'll have to go to the emotion behind it. And every time you're saying that, when you listen to the emotion, you're actually becoming a small child who decided this a long time ago. And there's a hurt behind it. You felt terribly hurt, connected to this kind of a belief about yourself. There was something painful that happened. So once again, if you can work on resolving that pain and hurt behind it, then the thought pattern itself loses its fuel. Its steam is coming from those emotions that impacted you. So just by working on that and being conscious of your thought pattern, questioning them, and then focusing on building something positive about yourself, like you can take some small steps to build something positive, and that can make a big impact on in overcoming these kind of thought patterns. And but it's mainly about you becoming a bit kinder with yourself. So when you do that, you're no more looking for some validation on the outside anymore. All this is dependent on somebody validating you, approving you. And that's why when you let them down, you feel low about yourself, isn't it? But if you become kinder to yourself, if you become a friend to yourself, you're no more looking for anything from the outside. You become more self-reliant. And that will have a big impact. So when you learn to love and be kind to oneself, and that's an art. You got to spend time with yourself doing that. It's not something that I can just throw as an advice. You have to spend a few hours sitting with you, working with you, being kind with you. It's a whole way of living life. Yes. Yes.
What is it about the human mind that makes these interpretations? And like you say, you have a child who just makes their own judgment, an irrational judgment. Oh, I'm not good enough because that other child is better at this than me. Whatever. I mean, whatever it starts, and then it makes that neural pathway, and it continues and continues throughout life. What is it about the human mind that does that? That makes even what you would think an innocent child think badly of itself.
It's the lack of connection that triggers all this. I know that our parents try hard to be perfect as much as possible, but there are always situations when a child learns the hard way that love and connection can sometimes be taken away. And for us, love ensures survival, because as long as somebody cares for us, a small baby or a small child is incapable of doing anything by themselves. So when that love is taken away, fear takes over. And anytime a child panics and takes decisions from pain or fear or hurt, it gets embedded in our brain. Anything you think and you add emotion to it, it becomes a long-term part of your brain. It becomes a part of how you look at things. So unfortunately, when we go through anything painful as a child, it's the pain of that situation that makes the brain make this into a kind of a stronger way of perceiving things in that way. And unfortunately, we can't avoid unpleasant situations in life, but we can make a conscious choice to notice it, become conscious, become kind with that part of us, which is like a child who experienced this, and resolve it. So just because it happened doesn't mean we have to live with it for life. So sometimes we have to unlearn what we learned as a child and relearn a new way of being. And that's what we're doing. We're actually changing the software of people, because you got installed with an unpleasant software. Now it doesn't listen to you. So we need to take you to a place where you go, be more connected with yourself, and unlearn and relearn a new way of looking at things. And once you do a few things to strengthen that, and you add a bit of positive emotions to it, that becomes your new way of doing things.